Hello and welcome to Gaming the Podcast. My name is John Robertson. I'm joined by Stace Harmon, and together we are Indie by Design. If you haven't subscribed, then this podcast is out every Tuesday, so do make sure to subscribe and you'll never miss an episode. Today we are talking about an old game come new. Diablo 2 Resurrected is that's not a remake, is it? It's a remaster of the original game which came out way back in 2000, Diablo 2. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's somewhat famous. I've played quite a bit of Diablo 2 Resurrected, although I'm only on Act 2. However, we'll get into it. I've played a lot more than it seems. But Stace, my understanding is that you played the original, but you haven't played Resurrected yet.
That is true. That is true. And I'm going to start this episode being, well, I feel like I'm being very controversial, very edgy. I'm not really. I'm sure there are other people in the same boat as me. I haven't played Diablo 2 Resurrected, because I just was never that fussed about the original Diablo 2. And despite saying I was going to play it for this very podcast episode, I did not do that. Because when it came to it, the stuff that I remember about Diablo 2, I remember enjoying it for a bit. And I remember being able to kind of admire or appreciate its design and kind of the very tight feedback loop. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of that for a time. But I don't know, in the same way that I might appreciate like the engineering of an F1 car or a thoroughbred racehorse.
Sure, Blizzard would be happy with that comparison.
It's a finely tuned machine. I just never really responded to it emotionally. And that's, I don't mean it didn't have me in tears or, laughing with joy. I just was never like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I'm just not that fussed about it. And so as sacrilegious as it is to talk about one of gaming's real kind of powerhouse properties, I was just never that engaged, I guess, longer term by it. But this is an interesting episode for me, I think, because you, as I understand it, you have been enjoying it and you do like it. And did you play the original back in 2000?
No, not really. I mean, yes, I played it a tiny bit. I played it at a friend's house for maybe, I don't know, not more than a handful of hours. So I wouldn't say that I come to this with any great knowledge. The knowledge I have of it is, secondhand through other people talking about it rather than direct experience.
But so having played it at a friend's house, you weren't at the time, I mean, there could have been many reasons for this, obviously, but you weren't compelled to get it for yourself and play it for yourself.
Well, I didn't have, I was at that time. So this would have been not long. Yeah, so I don't know if I had my own PC to play it on. I think this came out before I went to uni. So how old I would have been 15. I was 15 when this came out, and I was just console gaming until basically I went to uni and I had my own PC.
Right.
So it would have been a good
simple as that.
5 years later that I had my own PC. And it's one of those games that if you're going to play it, you've got to have access to PC all the time, because if you like it, you're going to play it for like 8 hours a day.
Yes, you are. You are, yeah. So then what is it about, like, what? So you weren't able to perhaps play it back 21 years ago. You've mentioned previously that you were kind of looking forward to Diablo 2 Resurrected coming out. So what, have you played it in the interim? Have you played like an old version on GOG or something like that, assuming that they have it?
No, not played it at all. I played some Diablo 3, but again, not much. I was looking forward to getting this because it's one of those grand properties, like you said, that I haven't played. So it's an educational, just sort of, information gathering experience, really, to get it's one of the things I was looking forward to playing it for, but also a bunch of people that I know have got it, so there are different groups of friends that I tend to play games with, and I think on my PlayStation friends list, I think now 9 people were playing this yesterday plus me.
So does this get to the root of why you've played much more of it than the Act 2 progress suggests?
Well,
have you played multiple instances of it?
No, not really, but I've played multiple characters. So I've got 2 classes. Oh yeah, okay, fine, yeah. So I've got 2 classes that I'm leveling up together. So everything's taken double the amount of time. So I've got an Amazon and a Necromancer that are both equal level. I think they're both 18. Now I think the Amazon might actually be 19. I played so this is the other thing. So I've got it on PlayStation. So you get PS4, PS5 versions for a single purchase. But I've also got it on Nintendo Switch, which seems like the worst console to play it on. But when I was first playing it, this is how addictive the game is, or how addictive it is to my brain type or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When on that first evening of playing it on last Thursday, the day it came out, I was tired and I didn't want to sit in front of the TV anymore. But I still wanted to carry on playing it. So before I stopped playing it, I downloaded it on Switch so that I could play it in bed. And it's got cross progress. It's got no cross play, which is really annoying. Well, there are some things that I don't like about it, and that's one of them. But it does have cross progress, so you can just pick up your character and just carry on playing. I can't play multiplayer on Switch because I don't know anyone else with a Switch copy. So that literally is just for in bed and just grinding and leveling up.
So then I guess my next question, which is, do you feel in what you've seen so far and how much you've been enjoying it, that, because we talked about remakes and remasters and reboots a few episodes ago, we dedicated an episode to that. Do you think that enough has been done, given that it's 21 years old, given how much revered it is, I guess, do you think enough has been done in the, well, what is this, a remaster? Like they've updated it with fancy
I'm calling
graphics,
it a remaster, right? Yeah.
Do you think enough has been done in that direction to make it compelling? I mean, it sounds like the answer is an obvious one.
It's an interesting one because I can only answer this question as someone who didn't play the original. So I appreciate the fact that there's a remaster that is a remaster rather than a remake. Yes, there's a better graphics, and the graphics do look really nice. And you can flip between the old and new graphics, and it's there's no point comparing the graphics quality to the old one because of course they're great. I mean, and the game doesn't look as good as some of the new isometric RPGs, but it still looks really good. And we'll talk about the aesthetic as well because I think that's the tone, the visual tone of the game, and the music is brilliant. So from me, I like the fact that it stayed pretty pure because I'm coming to it, like I said, I'm coming to it from like experiencing this thing that I didn't experience back in the day. So I like the fact that it hasn't really made many changes because I can feel, I can get into that original thing. And games have this problem, like where, because they're so, technologically based in their foundation, it's very easy for games to feel very old and dated, particularly on a visual level, very, very quickly. So I think it's quite good, very good, that they haven't changed much, because it does bring the game into a palatable place visually for someone like me to be able to play and feel that original formula and that original design in a way that isn't kind of corrupted through making it more palatable on a design level for new players. But I am playing with someone, two of the people I was playing yesterday with did play it a lot back in when it first came out, and they still love it now. It sounds like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like it was considered to be a masterfully designed and executed game, and has remained so. I guess the flip side of that for somebody like me is that not a tremendous amount has changed. Perhaps you'd argue, nor should it have, and it hasn't. But that means that I kind of already know what it is going to it, and I know that I know that I would pick it up and I would enjoy it intensely for an amount of time. And then I think I would do that thing. Interesting. I think I'd do that thing that we've talked about you doing with, like, I would feel like I've seen everything that I need to from a design or from a ideas standpoint, and I would probably fall off it quite quickly. The idea of like leveling up two characters concurrently for me would just hasten that burnout, I guess. I mean, that feels that takes dedication to the underlying process, and I feel like you need to get a lot out of, as on almost a brain chemistry sense. You need to get a lot out of that feedback loop. You need to get a lot out of that process of going through the motion. Sounds negative, but going through the kind of the intangible, like
rush that you get for finding that new loot, for leveling up your stat, incrementally leveling up your stats, you need to get light out of that, because to do 2 characters and go through the same stuff multiple times or even concurrently is a big ask.
Yeah.
If you love it, then you love it, I suppose. It's
yeah.
not
I mean, one of the things that I like about it is that the different classes are really good. Like they're very unique. The playstyles are pretty different in that you have to worry about different things. Often the actual interactions are kind of similar, because it's just like smash this button or wait for this to, do you have enough money for this? So it's kind of the same, but actually your thinking process is about the order of what to do and how to approach mobs of enemies and stuff is very different. And also within the classes as well, there's huge potential to have different forms of a necromancer, different forms of an Amazon, different forms of a sorceress or whatever. And it is worth experimenting with those. Having the 2 different classes was largely about, because there are so many people on my friends list that play it, I also want to have characters that are so that we're not doubling up on classes, or we've got less chance of doubling up on classes depending on who I play with. And there's so much emphasis in the game as well on having the right gear. So having like combat is really slow. Certainly compared to Diablo 3, it's a lot slower, and you get mobbed quite easily. Like you get surrounded by enemies quite easily if you're not careful, because you can't move around as fast. Stamina is pretty limited, so you can't always run depending on how you've built your character. My characters don't have a wildly high amount of stamina, and so there's a real emphasis on making sure that you can survive getting pounded, basically. So you need to intelligently set up your gear in order to survive the onslaughts and absorb or negate damage through resistances or whatever, when you will invariably be hit by 5-6 enemies at the same time. So going through different classes and setting up different item configurations and stuff is really rewarding for trying to work out that puzzle almost of how do I get through this area. And there is some crossover between the characters as well, because you can now, and I think this is new, but I think it is, but from the original, in your stash there are 4 tabs, personal, and then 3 shared ones, and that's not shared between your party, that's shared just between your characters. So when you're picking up stuff, so as a necromancer, you're sometimes picking up gear that is perfect for my Amazon, so then I'm dumping that into the shared space. So there is some crossover. You are kind of improving both characters at the same time because the gear and the loot that you're picking up is for just more than your character.
See, that's interesting, because I was going to ask that question of, do you get a feel for whether it's been designed with sort of one intention or another? Do you get a feel for whether it's been designed really you're just meant to mainline one character and go super deep with them, or is the intention, because of the way that certain things are set up, that you do have multiple characters? And evidently, if not, I mean, maybe that's not the intention, but certainly that's been catered for. It's been,
yeah, I think it's probably catered for the super hardcore power players who are going to do like max level runs on nightmare and hell difficulties, and they've got every class at max level. Like it's for that, which is a tiny percentage of the game. But yeah, but I don't know if they designed it for me, someone like me, leveling up 2 characters from level 1 forwards. But for me, it works like that. That system does work. So you can share money and stuff between your characters.
Right, yeah. And that was the case with Diablo 3, or that is the case with Diablo 3 as well. I remember the whole money thing. So then it creates this interesting dynamic, I suppose, that you're playing as one character, perhaps with one particular party, and then you're finding stuff. There's a part of your brain that's paying attention to, I found this thing that's going to be really useful or cool for my other character that I'm playing with another party. So it keeps you kind of, even the loot, because of so much of it, of course, is about loot and getting gear. That just gives it sounds like it gives another kind of dimension to the loot system, because it's not just, this is all rubbish, I'm just going to trash it and get a load of money out of it. It's like, actually, this is going to be super cool for my other character, and it's a...
Yeah, on the loot system as well. So it's got that, and so there are some people who have complained about this, and some people that haven't, and I'm one of the people who think it's good that it stayed. And so when loot drops and you're playing a multiplayer, like the loot is just, there's the same loot for everyone. So, and then people can just go around and hoover it up. So you're left with nothing. But I actually, and I can imagine that would be very annoying if you're just playing with random people. Like, it would be more than annoying. It would be like enough to make you stop playing, probably. But I only really, well, it's not true. I can say I played the game in multiplayer. I haven't. I've predominantly played the game in multiplayer, and then I've played it by myself on the Switch. But I like the fact that the loot is shared between everyone, because it's a great game given how slow it is and how grindy it is, and in the best way possible. I don't mean to undermine the game, but it's quite a simple game. Like, the loot, the loop in the game and what you do and the missions are really quite basic. So you're concentrating on like the bigger picture, really, and that slow progress, almost like slow over time progress, rather than the moment to moment spectacles. But I like the fact that everyone shares a loot, because it forces engagement between you and your team. So whenever I pick up stuff, like, I'm not thinking about it just for me or my other character. I'm thinking about it for the whole team. So it forces you, it makes your team feel more connected if you're playing like, you know, like a team, like you should be, rather than just hoovering up everything and selling it quickly before anyone knows. So it does force that interaction on what is quite a simple game design. So you're all there just chilling and going through the game and talking or whatever, and then in the moments where there is conversation about the game and what you should do and how you should act and whatever, it's meaningful because you're picking up something and then giving it. So it's like you feel really connected to the other characters and you really understand what's good for them and what's bad for them and their classes. So you kind of get this like much bigger team sort of feel to everything that you're picking up. Although, of course, as I said, playing with randoms, everyone just hoovering up that, you know, shield that's paladin only, and you're a paladin, and then them selling it. It's like, come on, like, what are you doing?
And it sounds like it takes it beyond that idea of like you're just really a bunch of solo single players who happen to be playing in a party. It actually promotes a party dynamic via the loot system, which is, I suppose, like it doesn't need to do that, but it's good that it does that, in so much as that is. Like, you know, I don't remember much of the narrative of when I played many, many, many years ago. I don't remember being wowed by the story. It was the same with Diablo 3. It's like, what am I meant to be doing? I'll just follow the gold markers and whatever. So that idea of party play isn't like, there's no like, well, not no, but there's less role play. There's less than in, say, something like, you know, Divinity Original Sin 2. That's a much bigger, like, you know, narrative experience, and you interact with your party members through that narrative, whereas this doesn't.
Characters here are just quest givers and shops, basically. Yeah, that's how I see them already. Only in like halfway through Act 2 or however long through Act 2, they are all just, okay, they might be called Deckard Cain, but that's just a guy that identifies items. Like, that's like, he says stuff, but it's like, okay, whatever.
He's got this place in the lore, but whatever. He identifies my items, and that's all I really care about. That's the important bit. So then, how is it then, do you think, that a game that is 21 years old, and that I presume there was a conversation to be had, you know, when Blizzard sat down to do this, that, you know, how much should we mess around with it? How much should we change it? Should we be doing something like, you know, the Resident Evil 2 remake of literally remaking the game? Should we take it in a different direction? And that was decided clearly that they shouldn't, and that it should be basically what it was. So then, you know, how does that speak to just how incredibly well designed it was to begin with?
Well, yeah, maybe.
And why hasn't there been a game that's done it better since? What? Yeah. You know, why?
Maybe. I think specifically on the Resident Evil 2 thing, that's different because it does have those things that you were talking about, the narrative and the characters and stuff. So it's kind of worth seeing that story in a new way. Given that this is so mechanical, I think if you're going to remake it to such a degree, you might as well just make a sequel, which is what Diablo 4 is. I'm good because, you know, all you read is Diablo 4 is closer to Diablo 2 than it is Diablo 4, or at least adds more things from Diablo 2 that weren't in Diablo 3. So you might as well just make a sequel. There are quality of life things that I think would be nice here. I mean, I'm not playing it on PC, so mouse and keyboard, and I'm not playing it on PC specifically because it's easier to play with the people that I know on console. But there are still some. So using a controller originally seemed like a real pain. Now it's totally fine, and the muscle memory is built. There are still some things that I really hate, like adding
Mm.
potions to your belt is an absolute nightmare.
Mm. Does the interface feel like the original? I know you didn't play the original much, but does it have that mouse and keyboard feel to it?
Yeah.
Like this is what it's designed for. It's designed for a mouse and a keyboard.
Yeah, completely. And they've done a good job. Like I said, the muscle memory's built in and it's good. It's just a couple of little niggles are never going to be close to as fast as you could do it on a mouse and keyboard. But I mean, that was hardly a surprise. Still, I think there should be some extra fix. So, like in the layout of like the color coding of like stats of weapons and gear and stuff. Like, there's no color coding at all, really, just like white and blue.
Mm-hmm.
But so that makes it harder at a glance to see like where your core defense number is, or your core this, or your core attack, or whatever. Right. Not hard, but and it's the way it's listed. It's just like in text, centrally aligned. So it's not like your eye doesn't even go to like that point of the screen all the time because there's different. So it's just annoying. And they could have just added different colors to the attack number or the defense number or whatever, and that would have been so much easier. And you can't directly compare items either. So if you pick up a new shield, you have to like hover the cursor over the shield and then remember the stats and hover over the shield you currently got. And then it's just really annoying. And that gets annoying when it's like when you've got stuff socketed in and you've sort of edited items or customized them. And there's like loads of stats and it's like, oh God, I can't, it's a real pain.
See, that also feels like a deliberate choice then, because like there are games, it's not like the notion of comparing gear is somehow a new idea. There's plenty of games that do it, of course. There's plenty of very recent games that do it. So that is that sounds like an active design choice to not facilitate that. But do you think that's the kind of thing that with enough feedback it will just get patched in? Because it's Diablo 3 had loads of stuff in it, or didn't have loads of stuff in it at launch that was then patched in or out.
Well, yeah, and people hated it for like a year or whatever.
I remember the auction house being very popular.
Yeah, I hope that they just patch in easy stuff like this. I mean, I know that they're working on Diablo 4 as well, so this might not be super high priority, but I'm sure there's a team dedicated to this still. Well, there will be. There's some other things as well. The mini-map is very annoying. No crossplay is the worst one. No crossplay is just ridiculous. Like, why not? Like, I just can't understand why. Like, with more and more games doing it, more and more Activision games as well. I think Destiny's fully crossplay now, isn't it? So, like, I don't know why. Like, that really is lame.
And that sounds like, it seems like an infrastructure / budget thing versus there would be a clear unfair advantage if you're playing on X, because they wouldn't, right? Like,
and then the ladder
it's a cooperative for the most part. It's a cooperative game. You might be a friendly competition in trying to get all that gear, sure, but it's like it's a co-op game. So
there were some other niggles. Like at launch, in the first couple of days, the servers were we just couldn't connect to your friends for a while. I couldn't on Saturday, I think it was. It was on Saturday. I was trying to just connect with one other person and it just failed for like 2 hours. And then you read online and there's server issues. And it's like, why is Activision Blizzard of everyone? Why have they got server issues? I mean, what are you on about? Like, you couldn't have put the space in to this game. Like, would you not think it was going to be very popular? Like,
I mean, is that when do you think that's when you see the business of games? When there's something like that, it's like, well, this comes down to somebody somewhere not allocating enough budget to having enough server space. Like, is that one of those, like, well, sure, we don't want to go crazy and have so much, power and server availability, because that would be a waste if we only then fill 50% of it. Like, does it just come down to the economies of gaming rather than
maybe. I mean,
insight.
Maybe, probably, maybe. I don't know why it wouldn't have been solved pre-launch, full launch. I mean, I don't really want to get into Activision Blizzard sort of management.
That's fair enough. I would say, like, do you, as a quick thing on that, and we won't, and because there's a lot of stuff going on externally, of course, separate to Diablo or any game development at Activision Blizzard. Is there like a, death of the author type thing? Are you able to,
I mean, we spoke
effectively separate this and say, well, this is a thing made by a lot of people. Activision Blizzard is not a handful of people creating a toxic environment in and of itself. There's also a whole lot of good people and people that work very hard there who deserve their work to be experienced.
Yeah, I mean, we a couple of us in the group did. Well, we didn't really talk about. I'm not trying to sort of claim some sort of moral high ground here, but I'm not saying we didn't. We never said that we weren't going to buy the game, but we did comment on the fact that, like, this is. It doesn't feel that amazing to give them your money, given what's happening, and it seems to get worse every week at the moment as well. But yeah, so I mean, it's certainly on your minds when you play it. Like this sort of the revelations from within the company over that stuff doesn't on that sort of level. It doesn't on sort of like the non-game aspects of playing a game or buying a game, I suppose. It doesn't it's not working in its favor, let's put it that way. So it does. I mean, it was a thing. I mean, was it enough to make me stop buying it? Of course not, and I bought it twice even. So
double down.
So
I'm going to buy the hell out of this game.
But just on the aesthetics as well. Like one of the things.
Nice segue.
Didn't play Diablo 3 that much, but I played it enough to get it and certainly have a vision and have an opinion on the visuals and the visual style. The visual style in Diablo 2 is so much better. It's so much, but like it's so much darker and grimmer and just more horrible. And like it's like when you go into like a dungeons or whatever, like you can almost smell it. Like it's like it just oozes this character and this sense of place. And everything's like that, a bit more muted and just sort of realistic looking. Well, not realistic, but there's like the devil's running around. But, just like how you imagine like this, just a real hellhole would be. Whereas in Diablo 3, it's all like quite shiny and bright, and there's glowing things all over the place, and the magic is like cartoony. So yeah, just a sense of place, the world building, the everything just fits so nicely together. Like it does feel like this enemy fits here, and my character looks like it would an adventurer would walking around here. Like so the original like art direction has held up to time. I mean, I'm interested in the fact that you can switch between the new and the older visuals. Yeah, I wonder if it, for people that have gone back, if it has that quality of you remember it in a certain way. Yeah, it's like, that's the new version is how I actually remember it to be, and then you look back at the old one, you're like, oh my god, well, it looks horrible. Yeah, well, we had the exact thing. So one of the people that I play with who had played it in the past said that this looks like the original. And then we figured out how to flip back, and then it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't. But yeah, I said, well, we came to the conclusion that it was exactly that. It looks like how you nostalgically remember the old one. Obviously, that doesn't apply to me, but that's what he said. So yeah, from that position, not only does it look amazing, but it's held true. It's stayed respectful. It's not tried to alter the tone. It's just improved the visuals on a technical level. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen all of the zones yet, but all of the different areas yet. But it's so far like it does just look like it looks grim all the time. Like there's no like, oh, and now you're in like the nice bit to give you a break. Like no, it just looks horrible all the time. So we'll see how that goes in 100 hours from now, if it's still as charming,
oppressive. Well, that does lead into, do you are you, so you've got two characters on the go. Is this a thing that you are interested in playing other classes? Are there other classes that you've got your eye on that you'd like to start a third character for? How much game do you see, like how much do you see yourself getting out of this? Is this a play it to the bitter end, or is it kind of go broad rather than deep and just do multiple characters and play the same bits over and over again?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to roll another character. I can't really well, maybe in a year's time or whatever. But right now, I can't face doing another character and going all the way through. I'm more curious about actually not running another new class, but respecking my character to a completely different way of playing. Because I've like min-maxed my characters. Like I just go hard on, well, so far I've just gone hard on a couple of abilities, and they're brilliant at those. But they can't really do many different things. You can only respec each character once per difficulty level that you play on. Wow. So there's no way that I'm going to do it now. Like, no way. But, and then would I even want to do it later? I don't know, having spent all that time with that character. So yeah, I mean, the game is pretty hardcore in that way still. Like you can only respec your character once per difficulty. There's no hand holding. There's no I think someone says like, you can use a town portal to get back to a town scroll portal to get back to town. But there's no like in a modern game, there'll be like 5 minutes of explanation about how to tactically use that. And it's like, there's nothing like that. Like there's nothing like that even to optionally skip through. It's just, well, here you go. Like, here's your stuff. Like, just go and experiment with it. And through experimentation, you're going to waste a load of them. But it's like, well, tough. Like, that's just what you got to do.
And that sounds like a callback to the design of that era. That was very much I don't know if you'd call it respecting the players more or trusting them or just, these are perhaps back in the day of, what was this, 2000. So this was around like Baldur's Gate 2 time. And I remember getting what was about 140-page instruction book with the Baldur's Gate games. Yeah. I mean, this was like we're expecting something from you, like there's a expectation from the developers.
Was there a big old manual for Diablo 2 that we're just not getting
I don't recall one, honestly. I think I just remember just turning it on and playing it. I don't remember sitting there like I did with the Baldur's Gate manual and reading through it and theory crafting. I mean, you sort of touched on that earlier about the idea of sort of solving a puzzle or finding the right setup for your particular party and that kind of notion of theory crafting. Maybe that was part of the original experience that was kind of missing for me. I didn't really do a great deal of that. It was very much just jump in, play a class, play dozens of hours of it, and then
were you playing solo as well?
Yes, I was. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot more that, there's probably a lot more of the experience that there is on hand or that this game has to offer me that I'm not kind of, because of my very particular experience with the original Diablo 2, I'm not engaging with. And I think also Diablo 3, like you, I've played Diablo 3. I've played it quite a lot. I played it with a couple of different characters and a couple of different parties, like online parties. It was the same thing. I just got to a certain point and was like, okay, yep, it's fun. It's scratched an itch, but I'm kind of done with it. It's just not a thing now that I'm interested in seeing any more of. As sacrilegious as that may be. So, but yeah, I mean, is this? Do you think you continue through? I mean, is what would pull you through it? If everybody you were playing with suddenly stopped playing, do you think you would continue?
I would find that a lot harder, yeah, for sure.
So there's a social. I mean, of course, there's a big, but it sounds like there's a big social element to it.
Well, yeah, and the game's just more interesting when you're playing multiple classes all running around together, because like you're buffing each other, you're debuffing as a necromancer, I'm debuffing the enemies so that other people's attacks can be better. Because I don't really have very good directed striking with my necromancer, but I can do buffs that make the enemies more susceptible to physical damage, for example, which is fine for my character in solo because I'm summoning things that perform physical attack damage. Yeah. But it also helps the other characters in the party as well, like paladin or barbarian or whatever, to also deal more damage. So that's just more rewarding because you're all doing stuff to help each other and to, well, this is what happens in all these games. You're synergizing your classes, but yeah, you just don't get that without when you're playing with a single character. And of course, there's just a social element of just talking and just doing things with other people and them saying, "Oh, this is cool about their character" or whatever. And you'd never see that, or you'd never hear about that if you were just playing solo, unless you played every single character, which is just ridiculous. So I don't know if I'm going to carry on. I'd like to think, well, there's definitely a possibility that I'll carry on playing two characters through to the end. well, whatever the case, I'm definitely going to play to the end of the game. Will it be with 2 characters? I don't know. I mean, it might be wishful thinking at the end when it's like it takes 4 hours to go through each level. Then that might be, I might just end up just maining exclusively one character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. At the moment, playing with 2 characters, sharing the items, playing with different people, different classes. Like, because also sometimes, like, even when I was playing with the same group yesterday, I was flipping between my characters, like between missions. I was changing character and being a different character. So yeah, I quite like having 2 characters.
So for you, it sounds like it's a win. Like for you, it's a thing that's definitely that you were looking forward to before it came out, and now that it's here, it's kind of what you, having not played the original really very much at all, I guess you can see what all the fuss is about. Is that
yeah? And I mean, I knew what I was getting into. I've played other games that copy the Diablo 2. Like that's the thing. Like Diablo 2 is so seminal that so many other games copied it and tried to copy the loot system and the progression system and the minimal sort of quest givery narratives and stuff. It doesn't feel wholly new because I've played games like it. But yeah, it is. I can see what all the fuss is about. Yeah, for sure. So, have you, as a non-player, have you got anything else to say about it? Are you now convinced that you're going to roll 2 characters? You're going to try to do 3 characters?
I'm not, to be honest. I mean, it sounds exactly kind of, I guess, what I thought it would be. This conversation has kind of highlighted to me that, yes, my memory of the Diablo 2 experience is quite specifically geared towards, or no pun intended, or skewed towards a very particular way that I experienced that game. And so there is more there. It's not... Yeah, I don't know. It's not a thing that I'm looking to rush out. I'm still on Deathloop from a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I'm much more into my single player games these days. I don't think I'm getting old. I am getting old.
Just don't like talking to people. Leave me alone when I'm gaming.
Get off my lawn. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds fun. I'll just leave it to all the cool kids, and I'll just continue being curmudgeon-y about it. And so yeah, I'm sure it's cool. It's just not entirely for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I'm sure there'll be more to say later on Diablo 2. But otherwise, thank you for listening to this week's episodes. We'll be back next Tuesday. Until then, you can visit our website, indiebydesign.net, get the rest of the podcast episodes, check out the books that we create, and you can follow us on Twitter. We are at indiebydesign. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.